everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of the Power Within podcast. My name is Trevor Evers. I'm your host. And this week we have a fantastic guest, the one and only, the legend that is Bob Burns. Now, many of you are already, I'm sure, familiar with Bob's work. Bob is a highly skilled and world-renowned hypnotherapist based in Scotland. He is known for creating the Swan, which is now used by hypnotherapists and psychotherapists in more than 85 countries around the world. And Bob is also an author. He's written many books, and I know he delivers many workshops all across Europe and the rest of the world. So I'm very, very happy and honored to have Bob here on the show here today. So Bob, you're very welcome. How are you, my friend?
Thank you, Trevor. What a wonderful welcome. The only person expecting me to come from behind the curtain after a welcome like that would be my mother. So I'm very, very, very happy with that welcome. Thank you, Trevor. I'm doing great.
Great stuff, great stuff. You can pay me later, by the way, for that.
No, money's the last thing I worry about. It's okay.
So, Bob, it's great having you on the show. And just to start off, I'm very interested in getting to know what makes you tick, your passions, and how it all started for you. Can you give us a little bit of a background on how your journey started and how it all came about?
Well, yeah, but just before we started recording this, you did say there'd be no sexual questions. And right away, you immediately start on sex. I mean, what is this about, Trevor? Jeez. Okay, so I hypnotized my first person 50 years ago, Trevor, and I only look about 50, don't I? Hello.
You only look.
So I used to play with a band called Cockney Haggis. And maybe I've got this in one of my books. I'm not sure. The band was called Cockney Haggis because half of them were actual Cockneys from London, and the other half were Scots. So we had this band called Cockney Haggis, which we thought was a fantastic name. Anyway, we were playing at a place called the Queen's Hotel in Aberdeen on a Saturday night. And as we were lifting the gear into the place early, the manager was there. Her name was Liz. She came to the door. She was quite excited. She's smiling. She'd seen the band a few times before. She was excited we were playing there. This night we were billed as the funkiest band in town. That's how sad we were. Anyway, as we were going in, the drummer looked at Liz and he looked at me and he looked back at Liz and he said, "Don't look into his eyes. He's an hypnotist." That's what he said to her. Why he said that, I've no idea. Don't look into his eyes, he's a hypnotist. And the woman looked at him and looked at me, and because I'd heard what he said, I went, "Sleep." And I caught her head just before it hit the ground. Now, the band were terrified because they never knew I was a hypnotist, but I was really terrified because I never knew I was a hypnotist. So that was something, I guess I tell a lot of people, and I mean it, everything in life, the big things in life, they happen in a moment. But you don't know the moment's there right now. That was the moment that was going to really set out my life for the next 50 years. And I never realized it. I thought I was going to be a singing sensation in America. How the hell that never happened, I don't know. But here we are. Here now, sitting in a dark room with people saying, "So you're depressed, are you?" Anyway, so there it was. So I thought, I'm going to check this out. So through the years of going to university and studying psychology and philosophy and sociology, because I thought that would make me very clever and I would have a massive change in my life. It didn't, but what it does, it makes me really vicious on a Saturday night in a pub. I can give people a good argument with my university stuff. But in real terms, I had a look at hypnosis, and it was the hypnosis that made me think, wow, this is what, well, I still don't know what we are, but it made me look at lots of different things. So after doing street hypnosis and stage hypnosis, and as eventually a hypnotherapist, all of that came to play. And along with that, of course, way back in the 70s, I was a registered healer with the SNU. I was an accredited healer. So I'm one of these guys that stood in the dark room and got for half an hour and said, "Are you any better?" Yeah. So but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with people today in the modern world talking about energies. Other people think they're idiots, but I'm okay with that. I'm very comfortable with that word. Yeah. So with the healing word, with the energies word, with the healing that I did, and with what I knew in a psychological background and an academic background, along with the reality of even doing straight hypnosis, which teaches you so much. Once you can get into knowing how you can induce, is incredible. So I spend a lot of my time nowadays reading people online arguments of what hypnosis is and how it works, and I just sit there giggling as I as I sip another glass. And I guess it's because a lot of them aren't really doers. A lot of them are the people who get their knowledge from books and go to one-off courses and so on and so forth.
Sure.
So the whole idea is to practice, 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 practice. As William Clement Swan said to me back in 1978, see the people, see the people, see the people. In other words, move and do it now. Don't.
You're walking the walk as well as talking the talk.
Stop planning.
Yeah.
People out there who plan their planning. How about that? They don't just plan, but they even plan the planning. So that was how I got into it. And since then, things kind of took off. And now, even today, I'm a working therapist more than a teacher or a trainer. I see myself as a guy who does therapy in a small room.
Great stuff. Great stuff. And the first person that you hypnotized, you said, was 50 years ago.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, 73 at the Queen's Hotel in Aberdeen. Yeah.
Wow. That's the date of my birth, the year I was born, 1973. You were hypnotizing people even back then.
The funny thing is, after I hypnotized her, she put on 7 stone and started smoking. I don't know what that's about.
Right.
No, this is called, Trevor, this is called humor. You asked for humor as well. I said I would do some of that.
But in the meantime, I mean, I'm sure you evolved along your journey. And as you went, continued along your journey, what drove you? Like what makes you tick? What are your passions? What were your passions and up until the present day?
This is an easy answer, but it's kind of sickly a little bit. I can see some people listening to that and going, it's just but it's simply the truth. I right now I'm going to sound like one of these American beauty queens, and what would you like to do with the world? I just want to help the poor children in Africa. It's going to sound like that. Because even my English wife, bless her, she says to me, what is it that drives you? What would you like to be? And I didn't have to think about it. I've always wanted to be a healer. I've always wanted to heal people, to help people. Don't get me wrong, Trevor. I'm sure my ego had a bit to do with that. Yeah. Bright blue eyes, golden hair. Let me touch you. How's that? Yeah. I think that was like that in the early days. I'm pretty sure my ego is completely involved in that. But I can honestly say it's like that today. There's just not a better thing that I would want to be able to do than to take away someone's pain, take away their anxiety, what have you. I can think of nothing better to do with my life than to be able to do that. It's just a fantastic goal. One that I'm not able to do, just on call. And that's always been a broken-hearted thing with me. I've never been that good able to do it. But I've had my miracles, as nearly everybody has in this business. We like to talk about it when we're together, about, I saw this guy or I saw this woman and this happened. It's fantastic. But we're just not able to repeat that on call every day. Bummer. But that's okay, because that tells us we find out why that is. Well, sometimes we do. Sometimes we get to find out the why and we move on from there, which is quite cool, I suppose. Yeah.
Sure. And just out of interest, if you were to give a hypnotist that's starting out now a word of advice, a few tips based on your 50 years experience, what would you say to him?
Well, first of all, get rid of your hubris. Don't talk up about what you do. Although there's nothing wrong with stating facts about certain things. And just what I said there a minute ago, if it's a guy that wants to make a business out of it, I would say see the people, see the people, see the people. That's it. That's my advice. Everyone who knows me knows that I repeat that a lot. And again, do it now. And with now being in capital letters like that, Hollywood writing in Hollywood, the big writing, Hollywood, like that. In my head, inside my head, I have do it now written. You attended something that I did in London just over a week ago, so you'll know that I took my phone out. I showed people my phone every day of the week. I have written my phone Nan, N-A-N. I've got lots of stuff when I look at my diary, but I've also got Nan. Most days, Nan, there'll be nothing after it. So there's nothing there for none today. But other days, there will be none. N-E-N. And people think, what is that, his grandmother? No, it simply means not allowed nut. And that reminds me that, you know, I've got the problems the same as everybody else. I put things off. I say I'm going to do things and I don't do it. So if I pick up my phone today and I look at it and it's got non-written in it, I'll have things to do on that day and I'll do it now. I'll move immediately and that's what I'll do. So when I open up something and I see the words N-E-N, none, that means I've got to go now and I have no choices in it. That's how ridiculous I am. And I have something here. The second one down, if you can see that, N-A-N. And the first thing there is teeth cement. Marcy. I've got to talk to somebody called Marcy about teeth cement. It's a ridiculous story. I'm doing something with fake teeth and I want to get, but they keep slipping out, which is ridiculously funny, but I want to see if I can get them fixed. And it's been like this for 2 weeks now. So when we're finished talking, I'm going to be contacting Marcy, who's a dental nurse. I'm going to be going around to see her. I'm going to be getting this teeth cement. It's a small thing, but the things after that will be big things. Contact Harry, make a phone call and arrange a dinner. And why am I doing that? It seems like a small thing. Why would you put it under none? What's so precious about that? Well, what's so precious about that is I recognized just last week that every time I meet this guy called Harry, a good friend of mine who I've known now for, I'm going to say for at least 45 years. We keep saying, hey, must get together, call you, okay, bye, buddy. 45 years, we've been playing this ridiculous game. We bump into each other once a year and we keep planning to do this. We don't do it. I've had enough of it. I'm going to contact Harry. We're going to make an appointment. We're going to go and have dinner together with our wives, and it might be a regular thing. So if there's something like that, it really gets me. I put it under none, and I've got to do it. No, what I've just said is absolutely simple. I can see people now listening to this thinking, guy's an idiot. Well, I talk to lots of people, and what lots of people tell me is that's what they suffer from. They just don't do the things that they say they're going to do. They just don't get around to it. I'm going to get around to it, but I'm going to get around to it next week.
Just talking about procrastination when it comes to this podcast.
That's the word I'm looking for. I couldn't think of it. Well done.
Procrastination. Just to give you a bit of insight, folks, into this podcast. This podcast stemmed from some inspiration I got from attending a fantastic hypnotherapy conference in Wicklow last May, organised by John Scanlon. So I had a shout out to John, and he created an amazing event and he got together a fantastic group of people. As you know, Bob, you met many of them in Larne a week or two ago.
Yeah.
And I came up with the suggestion of, something that I always wanted to do, my own podcast. And so with the support and the encouragement of the group, I set about doing that. So I have a friend of mine, Alan James, who has his own podcast called The Circle of White Light. Check it out, folks. Well, a great podcast, great guy. And he was kind enough to spend some time with me to go through what I needed to set up this podcast, the proper equipment. So you have the right sound, the right video, and, it's professional. And so I got the equipment, and the equipment arrived at the house in a big box. And it stayed there. My wife will vouch for this. She'll confirm this, for a month or 5 weeks there in the hall, because I kind of to start saying, what have I got myself into here? I don't want to open it up. And it was only for my wife saying, look, either open that up or send it back. And so when I opened it up, then it was like a new toy, a child at Christmas getting a new toy, setting it all up. And that made me kind of move me on to the next step with the help of actually Kenny Falconer, as you know, Ken as well. And so that a couple of weeks after I opened up the equipment, Kenny and me had a conversation, and Kenny kind of coaxed me into kicking it off and getting the ball rolling. So I know what procrastination, been there, done that, but it is important, isn't it, to kind of, go and do it, rather than like you hear people saying to you sometimes, old friends, I know you mentioned going, every so often they might say, oh, we should meet for a coffee, or I'm going to try and meet you for a coffee, or I'm going, like, it's the word that they use as well. That's probably never going to happen, isn't it? But as the Nike ad says, just do it. But Bob, I'm very interested then, I mean, in getting to know a little bit about, of course, the Swan. Like for somebody, let's say if I play devil's advocate here, and I'm somebody that's never heard of the Swan, or even like knows very little about hypnosis, how would you describe, or how would you explain the benefits of how the Swan can help me or help them?
It's such a biggie, and we need a couple hours in total, but very, very quickly. And again, our belief systems come into this as I'm answering the question. People with different beliefs will be listening to what I'm saying, and I can't do anything about people's beliefs. And I discovered many years ago that we don't get to decide what we believe. We just don't get to do it. It's an impossible, Trevor. How about that? I'll prove it to you right now. I am your wife, and I'm talking to you right now through the screen. Do you believe that? Could you try and believe that? Is that anything I could do? See, we don't get to decide what we believe. So having that on board, that thought, here we go. Imagine the possibilities that we are greater than we think we are, that we have possibilities that we can't even consider possible, that it's true that there's a part within us. There's a thing called parts therapy, where in psychology, if you like, initially, the idea is that there's lots of parts within us. For example, Jimmy asked me if I'll go to his get together this Saturday, and I said, well, I'll try and be there. He can actually write me off now, because when people say they'll try and be there, that denotes failure, as we know. That's a truism for sure. But what's really happening is a part of me truly wants to go to Jimmy's thing, and a part of me absolutely wants to stay at home and watch Strictly Come Dancing. It just started last week again, folks. Watch it; it's fantastic. So. And that's it. That's called parts therapy. Swan's a little bit different from parts therapy. A lot of people think, well, Swan is parts therapy. Swan's a little bit different because it takes parts therapy to a whole new world, where the part actually can come, as you witnessed just then one, and the part will talk in the room to people in the room, which can be for some people a little bit spooky. It was okay for us because it was in the afternoon, the sun was shining, nothing scary about that, but it can be in the right environment. So imagine if there's a part inside me. Imagine if I'm going through a really strong situation right now, and I'm not handling it too well. Imagine if it was possible that there's a button I could press. This one here, maybe a tweak over here, and a part says, "Hi, how are you? Can I help?" Well, I've got this thing. Well, listen, maybe if we do it this way, and suddenly we've got a communication that builds up. The part says it will help simply in the asking initially. Simply in the asking initially. I'm being very careful how I word this, because it can't be as simple as, and that's it. That's what a lot of people think about hypnosis. Hypnotizing, tell them not to do it, and they're fixed. It's just not like that. So back again to Swan, we set up some form of communication. Bart says it's trying to help, and the person himself doesn't even believe it. How about that? They don't have to even believe it, but they can sit and watch this hand turning, and they can listen to them, they can watch the mouth opening saying, "Hello, Bob." And they're going, "What is happening here?" But here's where it comes to it. It's in the eating of it, is it? Because the next day and the day later and the day after that, they turn around and they say, "I'm feeling great. I can't explain it. Is it coincidence?" But this part within them is now working. We've awakened a sleeping giant. Write that down, somebody, and send it to me. Okay, I don't have a pen here. We've awakened a sleeping giant. I'll read that book. We've awakened a sleeping giant within us, and the magic starts to happen very quickly, very, very quickly. I've got a friend in Dundee who contacted me about a friend of theirs in Europe, and the friend hasn't been able to sleep. That's what I thought I was working on. A guy's coming to me online because he can't sleep. And as we're talking, I do my work, and he goes away and he comes back the next day and he tells me he never slept a wink. Wonk, 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 wonk. That's the noise of my heart. Yeah. It would appear that Bob Burns is shit. He can't do anything. So I talked to the guy, and of course it is my fault because I should have found out more. He now tells me that it's not that he's having a problem sleeping. He hasn't slept for 30 years.
Wow.
Now, I know there's some people there, if they know the world, they'll know that there's a thing called terminal amnesia. And if you don't sleep for a couple of weeks, a person could die. I know that. I'm read up in that. But there are certain very special people who never sleep. But what they do, Trevor, is maybe on a Thursday at 3:15, they close their eyes and they kind of rest like that. Not same for a few days. But they'll claim, this is their wording, that they never actually slept. This is this guy here. who also suffers from anxieties, so on and so forth. So now that he's given me that new information, we got involved. We got involved, we pulled in the Swan. We did some things, and off he goes again. Me, am I highly confident? No, I'm highly experienced, and I'm highly experienced enough to know that I mustn't be optimistic. I'm a pessimist, Trevor, but I'm a positive pessimist. That's a good news. I'm not a negative pessimist. I'm not an optimist because they just get let down all the time. Oh, what went wrong? I'm a pessimist. I'm accepting the worst is going to happen, or believing that's what's probably going to happen, but I get nice surprises because I'm a positive pessimist. So I send out thoughts from the guy, and is my belief with my healing part, when the session's over, it's not over. I'm sending out thoughts to him on that night at the same part because I believe the energy can travel. That's me. Leave me with that, guys. Don't give me a hard time, yeah? The next morning, he contacts me to say, I slept for 10 hours. How about that? Let's call it coincidence, because I know there's a lot of people from the evidence-based brigade will tell you that all my stuff is anecdotal. it's Bob Burns telling you a story. Yes, it is me telling you a story, along with a couple thousand clients I've got who will tell the same story. So that anecdotal evidence gets together, it dovetails, and it becomes evidence-based. You plonkers, it becomes evidence-based, yeah?
Yeah.
I can't even remember what the question was, but I'm sure my answer was beautiful, was it? I can't. Help
Brilliant,
me.
brilliant. Just like getting to know a little bit about the Swan and
yes. So here we go.
Works.
Things can happen. Magical things can happen by just cooperating the Swan, and the Swan taking over and saying, "Let me get involved. Let's see what happens." We can make contact with it much easier. That's what I would say, and it's much better than an ideomotor response. I'm not knocking ideomotor responses, but a lot of the times it's a person saying what they believe. But when the Swan comes in, as you so Swan will even argue. Swan will say, no, I'm not going to, I can't do that, or whatever.
For listeners that have never heard of the term ideomotor response, an ideomotor response is communication with the subconscious, right? I set it up. I suppose most hypnotherapists will set it up in finger signals, right? But isn't it true to say that you can actually set up ideomotor responses using the Swan as well? Or is it more than just an ideomotor response? Like an ideomotor response, folks, is, to me, in simple terms, connecting with your subconscious, my client's subconscious mind, or the parts they're in. But it is more than that, isn't it, Bob?
Yes. So an ideomotor response can be a wiggle of a foot. An ideomotor response, the most famous one in the world, of course, is a pendulum. Round for yes, let's say, and back and forth for no. It's a fascinating thing. I love the pendulum, and I still use the pendulum in my work, and we don't have time to get into that in a special way. It's a kind of a starter for what I'm about to do, and I'll show them. Well, I'll do it, and I'll say, "But I could be cheating. Why don't you take it?" Hand them the pendulum, and it works again. So they think, "Wow, this is incredible." And we leave it at that. It's like lies to children on a first session, until they're ready for a more sophisticated truth. Does that make sense? So it's like lies to a child until they're ready for a more sophisticated truth, which I will give them in session 2 or 3 or whatever. But right now, I personally have no real belief that they're talking apart inside them. If we film this very carefully and watch that hand in slow motion, we'll see the hand kind of doing this and doing that. By the way, that's okay. That has to happen for that to happen. That in itself is the ideomotor response. We wouldn't need the pendulum, if that makes sense. The hand goes around like this for yes, and back and forth for no. Often I'll get somebody saying, I saw them, they moved the hand. Yes, they moved the hand, you idiot. They have to move the hand. But that in itself is the ideomotor response. There's nothing wrong with that, yeah? But it's an ideomotor response, and most of the time that we notice, if we do this for many years, after your first decade, you realize that most of the time, the answer is what they want the answer to be. Swan will not do that. Swan will give you completely different answers. No, I'm not here to help them. I'm just passing through. And et cetera, et cetera. Because like I said, it takes at least a couple of hours to even get close to answering the question completely.
Sure. And does it depend on the person being open to the believing in the Swan or not? Like, can you help people that don't know anything about it, just here, listen, go with the flow with it?
No, it's got nothing to do with that. That one amazed me. That completely amazed me. during the first and second year, we started finding out things. We thought, wow, we've got somebody that I don't have permission to use the name, so I won't use the name right now, but a very well-known sports personality came to one of my things in Edinburgh. And when the Swan came through, he got 2 swans. And we discovered that we had twins coming through. And they just, the best way to describe what I want to describe it and shorten, if I can shorten this story, during the lunch break, he went out for a walk and some of the people saw him and he said, I can't talk right now. I've got to process this. And so I went and approached him and talked to him, and he was troubled. He was troubled with the whole thing. And here it is. You've seen me walking. Don't try and help me. Don't try and fight me. Just allow it to happen. That's my wording. I'm scripted in how I do it because this works. This is a script thing that works, if you like. Don't try and help me. Don't try and fight me. Just allow it to happen. Is that okay? Take a nice deep breath and just that's it. But he told me later, he said, I fought you all the way.
Right.
I fought you all the way. I smiled, I nodded, but I thought, this ain't going to work. And then it came through. And of course, when his mouth opened and says, hello. Wow. He was, so at times there can be a little freaky out thing going on there, especially when somebody's fighting it all the way.
Right.
I'd love to be able to tell you what it is. I'm going to go back to him and ask if I can get his permission to tell that story and use his name. That would be quite cool. But no, so it doesn't matter.
Sports performance, and I suppose it can be used for everything, can it? Or is there
I've got
you use it for most?
Yeah, I've worked with world champion snooker players, professional fighters, boxers and cage fighters. Worked with footballers, horse riders. Yeah, lots of things. The Swan can't be used. I can't think of anything the Swan can't be used for. Nothing at all. And of course, my psychic ability now tells me, I can tell by looking at your eyes, you're thinking, what about sexual prowess? Yeah, we'll talk about that later, Trevor, because this is not what this is about. Again.
Great stuff. And so that's great. So, I mean, do you still have the passion for doing the work that you do after all these years?
I have the passion, but it's a different passion, Trevor. I've got a favorite term I like to use. It's called initial enthusiasm. So when you do something, when you were doing this right now, when you're starting this off, you had initial enthusiasm, yeah? And once you took that thing out of that box, I'll bet you just exploded, yeah? You absolutely exploded with initial enthusiasm. Someone's coming in. I'm going to tell my wife not to let them in. Okay.
All right.
Hey, don't let the girls open this door, my darling, just in case they see me. Okay. A couple friends of my wife, a couple of girls are coming around, and they might see me through the window and open the door and come and hug me and kiss me. It'd be very, very bad. So, like I said,
you've a good life. I mean, I just one eye on the time, and you know, this is something that I'd like to get you back on the podcast.
We'll do that. Let me close in this enthusiasm thing. So you've got initial enthusiasm, and it's there. It's sky high. Initial enthusiasm, I believe, is very, very powerful. After that, guess what we've got, Trevor? Even if it's going well, we are stuck with just good old enthusiasm. And enthusiasm is great, but initial enthusiasm, man, it's explosive. It's like an orgasm, isn't it? Yeah. So we don't get that after a while. So I've got a passion now. It's a different kind of passion. It's a passion that I can take it, I can leave it. I can go and do that talk in Romania next week, or if something happens and it's a bit, I might not, and so on and so forth. So my passion is now kind of, I'm older as well, yeah. So my passion is kind of when it used to be like a rocket. But yes, I still want to go out. I still want to see people and do things and what have you. Hold on a second. I've got an English, right? Lee, they're at the door. Open it. I don't know if you heard that.
But from talking to you,
sorry, carry on.
From talking to you in Larnbob and now. You come across to me as a man that's happy with where you are in your life right now. Would that be true to say?
Yeah, well, I like this where this goes. I think I'm the happiest person that I know. That won't be true, of course. There will be people happier than me, but I'm the happiest person that I know. But I'm the least satisfied person that I know. And it's been like that most of my life. I'm really, really happy, but I'm never satisfied. I could always do a little bit more. It doesn't bother me, by the way. It's just my makeup, and I understand it now. I used to do all these tests, these is it called asymmetric tests? I'm not sure what they're called. It's personality tests. I did them in the 70s and 80s, and my ones would always come back most happiest, least satisfied. Right. And I'd look at it and go, that's just spot on. That is me. Even when I was running a national sales manager for a company, I was a happiest, I believe I knew, but I was less satisfied. And it wasn't less, it's nothing to do with the job. It was life in general. I wanted more. I wanted to find out, what's inside the wheel. And why does it go around and so on and so forth? And it's always been like that with me. But I've had some of these questions answered, which is really quite cool. And that makes me happy. That makes me more happy than most people. So I'm quite happy with that.
Brilliant. And just to tie around the full circle here, I know we started talking about at the beginning of the podcast that funky band that you were involved in back in 1973. You never hit the big time, I take it.
Well, you know something? Somebody says to me once, does it not bother you that you never made it? And I looked at them. I think they looked scared. It was my luck. And I said, never made it. When I was at school, I saw these guys playing in bands, and I thought, I want to be them. And I managed to be them. I played for many, many years, thousands of different cases and that. And so that was making it for me. I never wanted any more. So that was it. That was absolutely fantastic. I got to be a professional musician. But yes, it would have been nice to get the bucket list. That would have been lovely.
Is it something that do you still play at all?
Yeah. I pull up my guitar every day, and I'm not a great guitarist at all, but I was a session vocalist. Singing was my thing. And of course, today I've got heart disease, I've got COPD, I'm 72, and my lungs can't do what they used to, neither can my throat thing, but I can still stumble. I get pleasure from it myself. I'm okay.
Well, Bob, I know that you're a legend, and you're an inspiration to many, including me. And it's been an honor having you on the podcast today. And I've thoroughly enjoyed chatting you and making me laugh and getting some great insights of wisdom and nuggets of gold within the podcast here. So look, if you're open to coming back on again at some point, you're more than welcome. Would you be up for it?
Very, very happy to do that, Trevor. Anytime you want, I'll do whatever I can to help you. That would be great.
Thanks very much. You're a gentleman. Bob, take care. Have a great day. Have a great week, and we'll be in touch.
All the very best, Trevor. Take care, my man. All the best.
Take care, Bob. Okay, folks. So I'm bringing yet another episode of the Power Within podcast to a conclusion. I hope you enjoyed the conversation I've had here and discussion I've had with the great Bob Burns. I know I've enjoyed it, and I hope you have too. So until next time, be good to yourself, be good to each other, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Take care, folks.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.